Hello and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander, air quotes, set review, close air quotes, podcast. My name is Serge. Joining me today, I have a Jer
Hello.
and a Wheeler.
Ahoy.
A reminder that North 100 is brought to you by you with your support of the Patreon over at patreon.com/loading ready run. Welcome to part 1 of our Modern Horizons 2 set review. Today we are going to be covering white cards, blue cards, and black cards. And a reminder that our set reviews are not exhaustive. We do not intend to talk about every single card in this set, just the ones that we think are relevant to our format, and we will be reviewing these cards through the lens of our format. If it's making waves in modern or standard, that's really neat, but probably not all that influential. And if you think we've missed any cards, or you have particular takes about the set or whatever, let us know down in the comments, because that's always fascinating. Let's jump right into it. And the first card that we're going to talk about is Abiding Grace. This is a 3-mana enchantment for 2 and a white, and reads, at the beginning of your end step, choose one, gain a life, or return target creature card with mana value 1 from your graveyard to the battlefield. Wheeler, what do you think?
Well, Serge, it's a white card that returns Martyr of Sands to play. Every single end step that is your end step, that every single end step that is your end step.
Real quick, for people who aren't familiar, what is Martyr of Sands and why is that relevant?
Martyr of Sands is a lifestyle more than a magic card, but there happens to be a magic card that shares a name with said lifestyle. It's a 1-mana 1/1 in white. It's a human cleric. It has pay 1, reveal X cards from your hand, sacrifice Martyr of Sands. You gain 3 times X life.
Just to clarify, they need to be white cards, right?
Yeah. You reveal X white cards from your
Cool.
hand. That won't be too much of an issue, thankfully, in the deck that plays this card. Even the variants with white green or white red, that kind of thing, or white black even. Okay, well, this card gets back that, and that's cool and good. I like that a lot. I have talked about these dorky Soul Warden decks for what feels like 2 years now. Although, actually, you know what? It might even be 2 years by now. Maybe only a year. And it's a deck that gets back basically 1-drop utility creatures that put themselves in the graveyard, usually for a reasonable, there's a reason they're there. Like Dauntless Bodyguard, protecting one of your creatures, Alseed of Life's Bounty, Benevolent Bodyguard, all the Mother of Ruins on a stick. And by a stick, I mean a one-shot. So this card was made for that deck. It's perfect. It's everything you could want.
But what about the people who would say, but Wheeler, this is a 3-mana do-nothing enchantment?
I mean, that is true, but you at least get something. I don't know if it's do nothing, because you get something immediately. I mean, at least on the end step.
The fact that this says end step and not upkeep does make it better significantly than the majority of cards. It's kind of an unusual template in that way, actually.
Yeah, it also just leads you to, being able to skull clamp your things or use some other kind of value or value engine or, a proactive use of your protective cards, and then inevitably get them back to then have them, protect your precious Lurrus or, no, Lurrus is really the only creature in that deck worth protecting, on their turn. So this card was, it's a bit of a do nothing, and that's in that, yeah, you need something to get back, but you'll have something to get back, and these decks are already just like kind of do nothing decks in that you're looking to grind your opponent out and make their life miserable.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Next up, Arkbound Mouser. This is a 1-mana 0/0 artifact creature cat for a single white pip, has lifelink and has modular 1. And I'm going to throw this to myself. So one of the major sub-themes in Modern Horizons 2, there's like 40 mechanics, but there's a lot of modular, and that's cool and powerful. But this one is a white pip, and when you're playing an artifact deck, and I'm probably going to talk about this a lot, but I think it's worth bringing this up now at the top of our whole set review. Artifact decks in particular generate a lot of mana, but not a lot of colored pips unless you're a blue deck. And as such, you want to be very careful with the number of pip hungry cards that you play. And is a 1-mana 1/1 with lifelink and modular 1 good? Yes. And maybe in a 2-color version of the deck, but the more colors that you add, the less of a home this card is going to have. Am I going to play it? I'll probably try it. If I do just like straight red white, artifact matters, give it a sword and swing. The lifelink is very relevant. The modular makes your creatures better. Can I see myself not playing this card? Also, yes. Either of you want to add anything? You think that's pretty on the nose, pretty spot on?
I like the cat.
I also like the cat.
Lifelink is pretty cool and good. And
It
if you
is.
load up a bunch of counters on this cat or equipment, you don't have to feel, I mean, you're hitting for a lot, you're gaining a lot. And if it dies, just put those counters on something else.
Here's a question for you though, Wheeler. If you had
Yeah.
a single white pip and you wanted to play a single white pip artifact creature, what if I threw you the next card?
Okay.
So we have Esper Sentinel. Is a 1-mana 1/1 for single white artifact creature human soldier. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless that player pays X, where X is its cost. So here you have another 1-mana 1/1 artifact creature. Your thoughts, Wheeler?
It's power, right?
Yes, power, not cost.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, where X is equal to its cost or
Yeah.
power. I almost said cost again.
So it's at default, it's going to tax them for 1. It only hits their first spell. I think this card is fine. I think that people might be getting a little hyped from seeing this card pop up in modern, I guess modern legacy and vintage. This is definitely a card that is better off in multiples, not as much
Yeah.
as just a single one that exists, but it does have enough, it has some good stuff going for it. Like, again, this card can be extremely annoying if you get it early on. You're typically playing it, the decks that want these kind of cards can again modify its power to start locking people out. It does have 2 relevant creature types and
Artifact and human.
sure, why not? I'm thinking more for like Caverner of Souls sort of thing, But yeah, like I actually talked about this with someone recently who is they're a bit of a black and white Death and Taxes diehard, and we talked about this card, and I don't think I'm interested in playing this card in like a multicolored D&T kind of variant, the ones that do dip into black, or if you're on like a green white hate bears or whatever. But I could maybe see this in like a more aggressive mono white build, with lower curve, or one looking to take advantage of the artifacts. But I'm just not that impressed. I'm sure this card will annoy the hell out of me, but the fact that it's a 1/1, it's the most vulnerable card type of all time, artifact creature, and that, like, imagine playing this and your opponent's just like, okay.
Go for the throat. Ooh, got him.
Hey, yeah, not wrong. But this, like, they just play their like Ice Fang Quaddle or Sylvan Ranger or whatever, right? Like, it just does. I don't think it does enough.
I wanna turn it around really quickly here and actually ask Jer, as a control player, as typically you would want to play this card against. What is your opinion as evaluating this as a threat that you're going to be sitting across from?
Unless you're buffing its power somewhat significantly, I'm not too worried about it. Like, because like by itself, it's not a very significant clock. It can be kind of annoying, and if you play it turn 1 on the play, and then I'm not able to trade counter spells or removal spells very efficiently. But I traditionally play blue-white control, so I'm just going to sit there and Wrath. Eventually, you might draw 1 card, but I'm going to get the card back off the Wrath anyways. So,
All right.
yeah, it's maybe annoying.
Next up, we have a very interesting enchantment called Out of Time. So 1 white, and when it enters the battlefield, untap all creatures, then phase them out until Out of Time leaves the battlefield. Put a time counter on Out of Time for each creature phased out this way, and the enchantment has Vanishing, which, if you're not familiar, which I wouldn't blame you, it's been a while, at the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter from this permanent. When the last time counter is removed, sacrifice it. I'm going to throw this one to me, and this is odd. I don't think this is the sort of Wrath that you play in a control deck. You typically don't want them to get your creatures back. I think I'm going to try this in Enchantress. And the reason being, Enchantress is a very powerful deck when it gets set up and when it gets going. And sometimes you can't wait until turn 4, especially if your opponent is popping off. So the chance for this to come down and buy you the turns, even if your opponents get their creatures back, if you get your moat out, if you get your propaganda effects out, if you get your engine rolling, even if they get their creatures back in 2 turns or 3 turns, you're normally okay. The issue, though, is, does this do enough? Obviously, exiling your own enchantresses is bad, but you do get them back. So in this case, unlike Wrath in your own board, Out of Time in your own board, and eventually getting your enchantresses back gets you significantly further ahead than the alternative. I don't know if this is good or not, but on paper, it checks off enough boxes to be at least interesting. Jer, what do you think of this as a 3-mana Wrath in not Enchantress?
No, thank you.
Yeah, I figured as much.
It's very good with Squirrel Nest Earthcraft, though.
Very good with Squirrel Nest Earthcraft, where you phase their board out and then you just untap and win.
Well, yeah, and their board gets phased out forever.
Oh, you do infinite creatures, and then it's a 3-mana Wrath forever. Is that what you're saying, or am I missing something here?
No, it was kind of a joke because you get to phase their board out forever, and then you get to make more squirrels anyways.
Yeah. When you have this infinite combo, it stops you from dying.
Ah.
I've honestly, Jer kind of hit the nail on the head where I spent so much time looking at this, scratching my head, being like, okay, so there is a loop. You can do all these loops with this card, but these loops aren't very good. You're like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing this to myself? I think the answer is like, because it's a 3-mana enchantment, Ben. It's like, oh, okay, I'll give this to Serge then. Like, yeah, it's.
I don't think you have to do anything cute with this. I think you play it specifically in a combo Enchantress deck if you're in a very creature or aggressive meta to buy yourself some turns. Like,
Yeah, well, it untaps that new Sarah's Sanctum creature, right? That we will talk about when, green comes around for the set review.
sure, add a bunch of mana, untap it, exile this out, comes back in, taps for a bunch of mana a
Yeah.
couple turns later.
Yeah, sack it on the stack or something. Does this actually, I haven't read this the way untap, exile this, put a time counter on this.
How are you sacking enchantments?
I mean, Oratog, dude. Like, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a reasonable sack.
Perilous research,
All right, sure, okay.
I did say reasonable.
All right. Let's move on. We're out of time for this card, Winky Face.
Oh, Pog.
Hey, you want to loop it? How about we talk about Resurgent Belief? This is a card with no mana cost. You can only suspend it. For 1 and a white, has Suspend 2, and then it says return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. I love it, absolutely love it. The fact that there's only ever been one replenish has been devastating, and typically, I think you're pretty happy to set this up. You're pretty happy to telegraph it to your opponent. Just be like, hey, you have 2 turns, and then I'm going to get all my stuff back.
You don't open the vaults? It is 6 mana.
And isn't it symmetrical?
6 mana, open the vaults. 4 white, return all artifacts and enchantment cards from all graveyards. Yeah, never mind.
I mean, if you're worrying about symmetry while killing people, you're just not killing people right.
But what if they're also a degenerate, Ben?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's risky in this format that, your opponent might also be able to kill you.
Look, I'm just trying to prime myself for when we get back to Paper Magic and Serge is going to sleeve up Open the Vaults against me, and it'll go horribly wrong.
The long con. Yeah,
I got him.
You're just trying to get more people to play Open the Vaults so you don't have to.
Yeah, I cut it years ago,
Yeah,
but
I know.
I get other people to do it.
You activated my trap card, Jaeger. Next up, Sanctifier Alvac is a 2-mana 2/2 human cleric for white. Has protection from red and black. When it enters the battlefield, exile all cards that are black and red from all graveyards. And if a black or red permanent spell or card not on the battlefield would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. Wheeler.
So I look at this card, and obviously it's pretty good against graveyard decks. I think that's pretty fair to say, but only very specific graveyard decks. And I do think pro red and pro black, my big brain thought of this card is just play, I guess I'll go with Paladin on Vec for a better 1/1, or Silver Knight. Because I look at this card and it doesn't do enough in the sense of mucking graveyards. And also Death and Taxes doesn't really need that. You don't really need that beyond what you already have, I don't think. And so the best part is that it has pro black and pro red, but this still trades with Vendilion Cliques and Hull Breachers, and I'm just Nibble Obstructionist, Trinket Mage. It doesn't do enough. And because of more cards like Opposition Agent, I almost said Paladin on Vec. People aren't reacting to Paladin on Vec. They're reacting to Opposition Agent, Hull Breacher, those kind of cards, and not to bring it up again, but powerful, cheap engine creatures. They keep printing these cards that are really good, but they're attached to a dorky body. And that kind of balances it because they just die to shock. So I think that if you kind of get one step ahead, playing something that has pro red or pro black, and in this case both, is like such a heads up. But like if you're just D&T, instead of this card, play Paladin on Vec. Not Mirren Crusader, play half a Mirren Crusader.
What's the 1/1 with pro black and red that's also gain life thingy?
Oh, Auriok Champion. Yeah, I love in the Dorky Soul Sisters deck I was talking about before. You know what card actually just like the reason I didn't go to time anytime I tried playing it is because I would slap like Jite on Auriok Champion and so many decks just fold. They can't do anything against it. So it's a good combination of protections, but there are just better cards for that. And then I think there are better ways of mucking your opponent's graveyard.
Next up, Sarah's Emissary is a 7-mana 7/7 angel for 4 white, 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 has flying, and as it enters the battlefield, choose a card type. You and creatures you control have protection from the chosen card type. Jer, we haven't heard from you for a while. Is this a reanimator target?
Sure is, Serge. Yep, it's a good one at that.
Why is that over other classic reanimation targets?
I mean, it's sort of just got the, like, its ability is as good in every matchup. Like, in an aggro matchup where they're not going to be able to kill a 7/7 flyer, you choose creature, and then it's unblockable and you don't take damage. In a control/combo matchup, you can name instant or sorcery, and then it makes it much harder for them to interact with your creatures and also you. In the rare times you may name enchantment or artifact or planeswalker, I suppose, but that seems much less likely. Yeah, but it's just a very applicable ability, very fast clock, has evasion, big body, good card.
Next up, we have the first of the elemental incarnations, and this is a very exciting cycle, and I'm looking forward to seeing how much they impact our format. First up, Solitude, 5 mana 3/2 for 3 white white, has flash, has lifelink, and when it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 other target creature. That creature's controller gains life. It's just a swords. Cool. Gains life equal to power, and you can evoke this by exiling a white card from your hand. JR, what do you think?
This card's absolutely nuts. An interesting thing to point out is that with the advent of things like Ephemerate, Restoration Angel, if you're playing a blink deck, every card in your deck, it being a creature is much better than it being an instant or sorcery, because it's much easier to get back and do it again. Yeah, we've joked for a long time about there being like a force of swords to plowshares, and this exceeds any expectations I ever had for that card, which were very low, even on the basis of like it ever actually happening. Yeah, it's just a incredibly powerful card that's gonna go into every single white deck ever.
I was gonna say, so like Swords and Path are some of the best removal ever, and get into almost all white decks. Is Solitude now up there? Like, is there any reason not to play this?
I mean, you won't play it in every single white deck. It's a slam dunk in blue white control for me. It's a slam dunk in creature decks because you can tutor up an instant speed swords to plowshares that you can recur.
You can recruiter for this.
Yeah, you can recruiter. You can recruiter the guard for this one, which is quite good.
Yeah,
it's just incredibly powerful. If you haven't thought long and hard about how good this card is, it's so much better than you think it is right now.
Well, no, it's
enough said. All right,
Dovin's Veto. Just think of Dovin's Veto, and this card happens. Or Force a Negation, or Spells Pierce, or Misstep. Or
you're like, I got the win. And I'm holding the gate. They can't kill my threat. You're like, Solitude?
Yeah.
All right, and the final white card that we're going to talk about today is the Timeless Dragon. This is a 5 mana 5/5 dragon for 3 white white, has flying, but it also plane cycles for 2 generic, so 2 and discard this card, search your library for planes, and of course, our format being what it is, it doesn't specify non-basic, so you can get your dualies, and it has Eternalize, so for 2 white white, you can exile it from your graveyard and get a 4/4 black zombie dragon version of this, and this is an activated, it's so good. Jara, what do you think about the dragon?
Yeah, I really like this card. I think it gives you a lot of value. Flying is an ever underrated ability, and yeah, I think this is a really, really strong mid-range option. that's great for those of you who want to sort of inch your way into playing 5-drops, because this can be a 4-drop if you really want it to, if you're not ready to commit all the way to 5-drops in your mid-range decks. So good option for those of you who are working towards it.
All right, let's move on to blue. Our first card we're going to talk about is Inevitable Betrayal. It's a suspend card, so it has no mana cost by itself, but for 1 and a blue, it suspends for 3 turns and reads, search target opponent's library for creature card and put that card onto the battlefield under your control. Then that player shuffles their library. Jer, what do you think of this new control magic?
It's a bribery.
Look at this new bribery.
I think it's too slow. I think the fact that you're not getting this until turn 7 most likely just means it's gonna, like, games often don't last that long, and you can't afford to take your turn 3 off to set up a bribery later. Yeah, if you have reliable ways to cast this for free, like if you're doing if you're going all in on like Omniscience, As Foretold.
I was gonna say maybe even Cascade. Like if you're doing a Blood Braid or a 4-color Blood style deck, are you ever hoping to hit this or no?
No, it's way too unreliable. The only way you'd do it is if you were playing a Yidris deck, where after it deals combat damage, it gives the next spell you cast Cascade. And so you might do that to make your 1-drops better. You can put in some of the free, like 0-cost spells. Sure. But I think there's just better options. Like you'd much rather play Ancestral Visions in your deck than this card.
Yeah, fair.
So I just think it's going to be too slow and mostly just too slow, unless you're all in on being able to cast your spells for free.
Okay. All right. Next up, the classic What Does Jer Think of a New Counterspell? We have Lose Focus for 1 and a blue. Replicates for blue, which means when you cast a spell, copy it for each time you pay the replicate cost. And then you can choose new copies for it. And it says counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. Jer.
I really, really like this card. It's a very reasonable cost. You could make it very difficult to battle in a counter war because Replicate beats a single other counter spell. So if you have 3 mana, you might as well use it if you're not doing anything else and make your card much harder to counter. Yeah, like people have played Rune Snag in this format, and if you're not aware, Rune Snag not so good in singleton formats. So this card, a clear upgrade on that option. So
all right. So I know this is going to be a very tough question to answer on the spot, but what counterspell is it in your deck? Is it like number 7? Is it number 10? You know what I mean?
It'll somewhat depend on what style of deck you're playing. I think a good percentage of the time it's better than Miscalculation. So if you I think it's close, but I think it's slightly better than Miscalculation. So if you're playing a bunch of Miscalculations in your deck, you should probably at least try this one out.
All right. And then next up, Mental Journey. This is a 6-mana instant for 4 blue. Reads draw 3 cards, and it also has basic land cycling for 1 and a blue. Let me throw again to Jer. Jer, this is 6 in a row.
Love it.
The little Jer power hour here.
Yeah, this card's great. Being able to basic land cycle for 2 is really nice, and having a late game instance. If this was a sorcery, we wouldn't even be discussing this card, but because it's an instant, you maybe get to cast it sometimes. I'm still not sure how often I'd play this, but I think it's a reasonable option to at least try out.
All right. This is a very exciting dragon. We've got the Murktide Regent. This is a 7-mana 3/3 dragon for 5 blue. You're like, but wait, Serge, I thought you said it was exciting. Oh, there's more. It has Delve. It has Flying. And it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each instant and sorcery card exiled with it. Whenever an instant or sorcery card leaves your graveyard, put an additional +1/+1 counter on the Regent. Wheeler, it's been a while. How you doing? What do you think?
Lol. Ha ha. Ha ha. Look at the size of this. I mean, so Tombstalker, I mean, this is going to sound silly in present company, but Tombstalker is a wildly underrated Magic card, which is 2 black, 6 for a 5/5 demon with flying and delve. What if I told you Tombstalker, instead of being a 5/5, was, well, realistically, let's just say like still a 5/5, maybe a 6, maybe like a 6/6. Yeah, but what if Serge? What if?
But so much more upside.
What if it also had additional upside and you could pitch it to Force of Will and Force of Negation?
And you didn't have to put swamps in your deck.
Yeah. Is this just better because it's blue?
Yes.
I mean,
yeah. Well, not only, but that is one of the contributing factors.
Yeah. Like, you get to play this card with Ancestral Recall without, having to play Swamp. Basically, not that there's anything wrong with that. I literally don't think I've sleeved up a Canlander deck without Thoughtseize in like the past year. It's a pretty good card. But the fact that you could play this with Thoughtseizes or just stick to playing it with like Brainstorms and Lightning Bolts and whatnot, I think this dragon is pretty gigantic and good. And it's funny to say, but it's going to make my curve for flying men even more ridiculous. Like... that deck already plays Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise, but now between the stupid whale and this card.
Also, how ridiculous is it that Dig Through Time, you're just like, oh yeah, Dig Through Time, put 6 counters on my Murktide region.
Oh my god. If it's already in play and you dig?
Yeah, Grim Lavamancer, the fact, like, with Lavamancer...
Deathrite Shaman, Scavenging Ooze.
Even your opponent's Scavenging Ooze.
If they exile your graveyard, they make your region bigger.
Your Snapcaster Mage, Torrential Gearhulk, Jace.
And it's also just like leave, right? Like it's not just exile, so there are ways.
Regrowth.
Yeah, this works with Time Spiral, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. Just checking. Just really wanted to double check there. Okay. Yeah, I thought so, but hey, you never know.
It gets bigger with Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah, I kind of. Yeah.
Well, not Wheel of Fortune.
Not Wheel.
Time Twister / Spiral.
Yeah. You know what I meant, but you're right to call me out on that. Okay. What a cool and good dragon, Wheeler.
Very big. Yeah, very good.
How big is this cave?
Handsome dragon. Oh, it's a huge cave. I think it's, I mean, honestly, it the water's a little clear, but it does kind of look like the cave from Underground Sea, which is very, and it's called Murktide.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Rise and Shine. This is a 2-mana sorcery for 1 and a blue. Target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 0/0 artifact creature. Put 4 +1/+1 counters on each artifact that becomes a creature this way, and you can overload it for 4 blue. I'm going to throw this one to me. Thanks, Serge. You're welcome, Serge. I love it. I don't know if I love it as much as in Soul Artifact, but I love it with in Soul Artifact. You don't quite get the ability to do the in Soul Nithopter shenanigans, but I think if you build your deck slightly differently, this can turn a lot of your threats into other cool threats, especially with the cycle of new artifact lands we have. I don't know if I'm going to play those yet or not, but more indestructible artifact lands becoming 4/4s. This also gives you a beautiful overload at the end if you end up with an abundance of mana because you have a bunch of cheap artifact creatures. Yeah, exactly. It's just this is what it must feel like for an artifact deck to play against. Oh, help me. What's the Enchantress combat trick where you turn all your enchantments into creatures and you win?
Opalescence?
Is this just kind of like an artifact opalescence?
I mean,
kind of, not really.
I think March of the Machines.
Okay, well, sure. They already had one. Okay, fair enough.
But this is better than March of the Machines.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm just I feel like I set up Serge with the card he asked for, mind you.
Yeah.
But then
I think this card's great.
Yeah. Will, are you playing this in eggs, or do you think only in a creature aggressive deck? Or sorry, are you playing this in any of your dirtily artifact decks?
Okay, thanks. No, actually. I'm not super hot on this card. It's a card where, it'll kill people. I like playing it with, decks that will play Ram Roller.
Yes.
You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah.
Right? But I don't think I'm playing this in a deck that plays, Candelabra of Tawnos, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Artifact combo decks, I'm not super keen on something like this. I would rather play, if I'm going to play something like this, I would rather play the Antiquities War, which is it's the saga where the first 2 tick-ups, or the first 2 chapters, you look at the top 5 cards of your library, you get an artifact, goes into your hand, the rest are on the bottom, and then the third and final is all your artifacts become 5/5s.
Yeah.
Until end of turn. And because it's a saga means that, if you are playing a version of your Academy combo deck or your Academy ramp deck with Search for Glory, it's from Kaldheim, it's 2 and a white. You can find a legendary card, a saga, or a snow permanent which finds Tolarian Academy, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, yeah,
And they
yeah.
can also find this, and I guess can also find Urza's Saga once we get to that. No, let me write that down really quick. So yeah, I think I'm more into Antiquities War for those kind of decks.
That
But
makes sense, honestly.
yeah, if I'm targeting my like Bone Splitter or whatever, or my, well, not my Ram Roller, but you get what I mean. Yeah.
It's funny. You typically wouldn't want to target equipment with this, but I can absolutely see ripping this at the top deck after your opponent's wrath and then just beating them to death with a sword. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. I'll play this card. I could see myself maybe cut it in the future, but it looks very fun. All right, next up, Rishadan Dockhand. This is a 1-mana 1/2 merfolk for a single blue pip, has Island Walk, and for 1 and tap, you may target land. Wheeler.
I kind of mucked myself, or should I say murked myself, with Murktide Regent and mentioning Flying Man already. But like, I think we could skip the part where we say this card's great in Merfolk, right? Like, it's a 1-drop with an absurdly good ability. It has a second toughness because 2020. You know, why not?
Already has built-in Island Walk.
Yeah, might as well.
Don't even need the Lord, yeah.
Great nickname.
Like, yeah, we can get past that part. I might even play this card in blue-green, like strictly blue, although... but either way, I what I'm trying to get at is this is the first non-flyer, non-unblockable creature I will play in Flying Men. Although I say the word unblockable, yeah, exactly. It is.
It has Island Walk.
It's mostly unblockable, and when it's not, I'm not attacking with it.
Yeah,
I'm not attacking with it. This card's great. This card, cool. I'm just glad that we play a format with like singleton. Because God, imagine having to play against decks with 4 copies of this card and like 4 copies
and
of
4
Wasteland.
Rishadan ports.
Yeah, like, all right, I'm locked out.
Then you just start jamming Ancient Tomb and City of Traders in your mono blue deck just so you can activate twice a turn.
Yeah. Ooh.
Damn it.
All right, time to talk about the blue incarnation. Its name is Subtlety. It's a 4-mana 3/3 for 2 blue. Has flash and flying, and when it enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target creature spell or planeswalker spell. Its owner puts it on the top of their library or the bottom of their library, and you may evoke it for a single blue card in your hand by exiling it. I really should have thought of something more clever to phrase that. Anyways, Jer, what do you think?
It's good and cool, and you're probably going to cast this one for full retail a little bit more than the Swords to Plowshares because it's only 4 mana and is a 3/3 flyer, which is also cool and good, and the ability is cool and good. Although it's not as widely applicable as you might want. Like, there are definitely matchups where this is just a 4/4 flash flyer 3/3. Sorry, not 4/4. 4 mana 3/3 flash flyer. That's the words. Which also isn't the worst because you're at least pretending to hold up counter magic in those matchups anyways. So yeah, it's good.
It's a really good Mystic Snake.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it doesn't even make you put green in your deck.
Yeah.
Although these days that's just an upside. But
also, I mean, nobody's ever seen a Mystic Snake counter any non-creature or non-planeswalker card. Face it, don't lie to us. That card has only ever counted like 4-drop creatures or 5-drops. I gotta say, and please, I want to hear just a yes or no from you two. I feel like the change of just the line of text of creature or planeswalker,
huge.
The universal that has actively, I think that is the largest contributing factor to me just enjoying Magic more and more.
I think my happy place is just me in like a meadow with like reeds slowly blowing in the breeze and people just chanting or planeswalker or planeswalker.
I have like a framed photo beside my bed of Eliminate, and I'm just going like every night before bed. It's like, oh, thank you for killing Oko. Good night.
All right, next up we have Suspend, which ironically does not have Suspend, but for a single blue pip.
Oh,
look, it exiles a creature. Don't blame me for saying white. For a single blue, it exiles target creature and puts 2 time counters on it. If it doesn't have Suspend, it gains Suspend. Wheeler, what do you think?
I really like this card. I think it's pretty okay. I think it's, dare I say, even good. I feel like I'm going to target my own creatures a lot more than I probably should. But like, it it's a strong magic card, Serge. I'm going to come out and say it. It's a strong magic card. Exile's a hell of a line of text. You can like muck people's cards. I said the word muck way too many times a set review. I got to get out of that mindset. But basically that's just this set as a whole. Like that's a lot of time counters if you cast this appropriately on their things. And the fact that they have to then resolve it is sure, go ahead, try it. I've got this remand. I've got something to deal with this.
Over unsummon? Or is this the fourth unsummon that you're putting in a deck? I'm just wondering.
The first.
Four. This is it's if I'm a deck that wakes up in the morning and says I'm going to pay 1 blue mana and bounce a creature or get rid of a creature. I start with Vapor Snag and then I play Suspend. I think they both get in there. Like I think there are decks where if you're playing Vapor Snag, you're going to play Suspend. But there are decks that will just also play Suspend, like you can find this card off Spellseeker.
So this is just, I'm just trying to figure out, is this better than unsummon? Yes or no? And
well, they're different cards entirely.
Yeah, I know.
and so I don't think I can say whether or not.
But I want hot takes. I want complex issues diluted into very simple answers, Wheeler.
I'm sorry, but North 100 is the Canadian Highlander podcast where we give you appropriate evaluation for cards that you really don't need to care about too much. And we don't have any flashy thumbnails. So all you're going to get from me and Jer are reasonable evaluations and occasionally shrieking like baboons over, I don't know, cards.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's move on to... Oh, no.
Yeah. Speaking of baboon shrieking.
Oh, no. Sviloon?
Yeah, dude.
The merfolk god of the sea and the sky is a 3...
Take.
Is a 3-mana 3/4 for 1 blue. As it enters, it's indestructible as long as you have 2 other merfolk. Whenever it attacks, draw a card. And other merfolk you control have ward 1.
Why?
Absolutely nailed it in one.
I have 4 why questions.
All right, Jerry, you go first. Why the first?
4 toughness. Why?
Okay, second?
Indestructible. Why? Attacks. Why? Why not deals combat damage to a player? What was wrong with that text?
And the fourth one?
Why other... I guess it has indestructible, so it doesn't need ward. Yeah. All right. Sure.
All right, so why for literally every line of text? Wheeler, what do you think of this card?
I keep looking for the line of text that says it's not a creature until you do it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, maybe I have Thassa on the brain, but...
You won't anymore. I can assure you that.
Yeah. Like that. I don't think I was playing Thassa in Merfolk anyways. And now, this card's really strong, huh?
Yeah.
God. Like you can Caracas it, but that's it. That's all there really is to it. Like I'm talking about this in the context of Merfolk just to start, but like you're Caracasing this creature in a blue deck with a bunch of mana denial cards, Aether Vial, and also this isn't the only Merfolk Lord or Merfolk or like card in that deck that just says like, no, you gotta pay an additional mana. Like, this card, I'm sure in 60 card formats, has finally kicked Kira the Great Glass Spinner out as an honorary merfolk.
Yeah, I could buy
for
Kira.
Canlander, I mean, you're good, Kira. Stay a while. I might just play this match. I might give this card a shot in other decks too, like mono blue midrange or like the mono blue devotion deck.
Whenever it attacks, draw a card. It's a 3-mana 3/4.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. It just attacks, draws me. It's an Ophidian. It's the like supercharged Ophidians that doesn't die to a bolt. And that's a deck that, maybe I have a Rishton Dockhand. Maybe I have a True Name Nemesis. Sure, this card just gets indestructible. Maybe I play Mutavault or Faceless Haven.
Yeah.
Like, wow. This guy, yeah.
All right, final question. How do I actually pronounce it?
I believe you pronounce it as Asmarana Mardokai diced into Kulakar. I
Oh, that
think.
makes so much sense. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. All
Of
right.
sea and sky, I should
Yeah.
specify.
Yeah. That's just implied. All right, let's talk about the final blue card of the set, Thought Monitor. This is a 7 mana 2/2 for 6 and a blue. It's an artifact creature, but I don't believe anyone's ever going to cast this for 7 because it has affinity for artifacts. It also flies, and when it enters the battlefield, you draw 2. This is probably the best affinity card that they've printed in a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
This is so good. You're already playing blue, unless you're like very specifically just going red, white for, I don't know, double strike or artifact shenanigans. Like blue is the color of artifacts, and this makes artifact aggressive creature decks unbelievably good. You're going to put it in all of your decks.
So I had this card in my PPR pool,
Yeah.
and I know that the PPR isn't exactly a direct snapshot of what cards are going to be capable of in other formats, especially Canadian Highlander. But before the PPR, looking at this card, I was like, this card's really good, but at the same time, I'm going to try to take a very middling approach of like, do I want this card if I'm paying 3 mana for it or 4 mana for it? And then after the PPR, I just kept paying 2 mana and 3 mana for it in like a sealed format. And I went, oh, I play Mox Opal. I play Mox Sapphire. Like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I'm never paying I'm paying like 2 mana max, or I'm tapping an Ancient Tomb to pay this for 3, and
Yep.
I'm cool with it. Also, it's a construct, which it's not a Thopter. And that sounds, people are probably like, Ben, who, okay, why? And again, Cavern of Souls,
Yeah.
a pretty reasonable magic card in some of these artifact aggressive decks because it off colorless mana, great. You need to play your splash card, also cool, sure. But there's a card from the original Modern Horizons, Scrapyard Recombiner, which can tutor up constructs, including this card. So the fact that like if you get out the Scrapyard Recombiner and you're just like, I need to get some gas, congratulations. Here's another little piece of gas that you can find.
I should dig deeper into constructs and think about stuff. That's kind of cool. And I missed that one. Thank you, Wheeler.
Anytime.
All right, let's talk about black cards now. And we're going to start off with Bone Shards. Is this not a reprint?
Nope.
You're thinking Bone Splinters.
I am. There's so many cards in this set that I could have sworn were a reprint, but then just have the word or Planeswalker printed on it, and then I just go, huh. Anyways, Bone Shards is a single black sorcery that says as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature or discard a card, and then destroy target creature or Planeswalker. JR, what do you think?
All right. Now, I'm not proud to admit it, but I have played Bone Splinters in multiple decks in Canadian Highlander. And this card is so much better for 2 reasons. I'll give you those 2 reasons. Or Planeswalker, or discard a card.
Yeah.
Or discard a card is actually the bigger one, because now you can play it in more decks and not look like an absolute buffoon. And or Planeswalker is just gravy. Yeah, I think this is a dunk in a lot of decks, especially decks that want to discard cards for good value, such as Reanimator. I think it's a good 1 mana. Put your big dum-dum in the bin and kill their thing, whatever it may be.
Deathrite, Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah. Even a Birds of Paradise. I'd dump a Gristlebrand and kill a Birds, you know?
I'd kill my own thing, for Christ's sakes, to get a Gristlebrand in that yard.
Yeah, why not? And yeah, just being able to kill Oko, like you said it before, but it just takes me to my happy place. Like, yeah, please keep printing more Planeswalker. I love what you're doing. Keep it up, please. Card's pretty good.
All right. Let's talk about Damn. For black, you get a sorcery that says destroy target creature. A creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated. And then it has Overload for 2 white and says you may cast a spell for its overload cost. If you do, change its text by replacing all instances of target with each. Jer.
This is such a cool card.
It's such a cool card. This is the coolest card in the set, right? Like, I think we all agree about that, right?
Yeah, it's the best design magic card.
It's the best like flavor nostalgia design combo for sure. Yeah, it's also quite good. Just another Wrath of God. And any deck that's playing black and white and wants to interact on board will probably play this. You probably want to be heavy black and white. But if you're still playing Esper Control in this economy, yeah, Damn gets right in. Great card. I'd probably play like Supreme Verdict, Terminus, and this.
Wow.
It's sort of just a free roll Wrath, which is such a nice thing to have.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to
find-
commit to putting all these clunky Wraths in your deck, but free roll Wraths, that's something I can get behind.
You can find it off Spellseeker.
Oh my
That's
God, I
pretty
didn't
sick.
even realize that. Oh,
This
yeah,
card,
baby.
I won't talk about this card too much. I genuinely won't. That's the Wheeler guarantee, because I could talk about this card for 2 hours. I think it's one of the most perfectly designed Magic cards of all time. It's cool no matter how involved in the game you are. But for our format, the fact that like you can find it off Spellseeker, or you can find it off like Muddle the Mixture or Shred Memory, the transmute cards, but also you can hit it with Inquisition of Kozilek and it can get countered by Spell Snare. And it also kills Gaddock Teague. Like it's such this cool like back and forth, but everybody's happy at the end. Right? Like we all like everybody agrees it's like, okay, so here are all the things it can do that are you feel are messed up. But then here are also the list of things where you're like, okay, well, yeah, I guess these do stop that. Okay, this is fair. And then everybody, agrees on this and walks away happy. And that's kind of beautiful.
That is kind of beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
for that list, Wheeler. Next up, we've got Dothy Voidwalker. This is a 2-mana 3/2 Dothy Rogue, or a black. Has Shadow, and if a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter on it. Tap and sacrifice the Voidwalker. Choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. Wheeler.
I'm going to start things off by saying that because of Shadow, this is basically just a purely aggressive card. It's in that sense, right? Now that that's out of the way, I would have played this card even if it didn't have the 2 bottom lines of text. Like if this was a 2-mana 3/2 a Shadow, I'm in. That card's great. That hits like a truck for decks looking to reduce the life total of your opponents. And then they added the next line of text, and it's like, oh, I just get to exile all my opponent's stuff going to the graveyard. That's really strong, and it doesn't matter how it got to the graveyard. Wow, that's going to be really good against decks that care about utilizing the graveyard, which is everything because this is Canadian Highlander. And then they added the third and final text, which lets you then cast some of the cards that you exile, by making them discard it, if they mill a card in some way, shape, or form. And then you get to cast it for free. And you can play this off Luris, and you can unearth this card. I hate this card, but I also love this card,
Yeah. This might be one of my favorite cards in the set. I also have a soft spot for shadow creatures.
It's excruciatingly powerful. I think.
Yeah, I think it's really good, but I don't like it.
Yeah. I don't think it's not at like Hull Breacher or
No,
it's not opposition agent level of Grown.
It's a step below that.
For sure.
But it's really good, and I'm going to lose a lot to it.
Yeah, it hoses so many decks.
Oh God, yeah. Like I will play this in Dredge and then get mad when my opponent plays this against me while I'm on Dredge.
How dare you?
Yeah, it's so messed up. Like this, Shock is at an all-time high, folks.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, Punishing Fire is the best Magic card in this format now. Get it ready.
All right, next up, we have the Black Elemental Incarnation Grief. It is a 4-mana 3/2 for 2 black, has Menace, and when it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. Choose a non-land card, that player discards it, and you may evoke it, exile any black card from your hand. Wheeler.
So, obligatory ephemerate interactions, Restoration Angel stuff. Oh God. I mean, this card is very strong.
Is this the best one?
I think Solitude might be a bit better. I think Solitude is the best one, but I think Grief is behind it by a bit. Grief definitely has the biggest chance for a snowball effect, right? Like if you do get this card on turn 1 or turn 2, backed with additional hand attack, backed with ephemerate, or my favorite is using this with Safi Eric's daughter. Can't wait to do that. I think you're winning the game. I think you win the game.
And it's just more useful in more matchups. Than Solitude, right? That's why I wanted to call it the best one.
Yeah.
It's no matter what you're playing against, it's going to be good.
Yes.
I can't believe you get to choose the card in their hand, because there's a lot of effects that are similar to this.
Any non-land card.
Yeah. Your opponent has to discard, but they get to pick. The fact that it's targeted removal or hand attack, holy moly.
Yep. Yeah, there's also just like a set of cards for any of these incarnations. I think it's best, and I mean it'll end up showing that when people listen to this, that we should talk about like the cooler, oh, I didn't think of that kind of situations. And for this card as well, there's like a series of cheaper black instants, like combat tricks that basically say, oh, you thought you were killing my thing, well now you're no longer killing my thing. Undying Evil, I think, is my favorite one of the bunch, which has, it's popped up a bit in like mono black and black green aggro, where it's just a one mana instant. Dark Ascension.
Dark Ascension. I was going to say original Innistrad block. Yeah.
Target creature gains Undying until end of turn for 1 black, which means that if it would die, if it had no 1/1 counters, it comes back with a 1/1 counter.
So you're like, forget Ephemerate. You're looking at an aggressive black deck and then just doing all these cheat death effects? Dude, that's so powerfully and impossibly cool. Oh my god.
Collateral damage with this, collateral damage. Like any of the red, like you can't Reckless Abandon because it's a sorcery, but like sacking it to Carrion Feeder, like Evoke is a really easy, it's so easy to manipulate Evoke, right?
Yeah.
And like, here you go. Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting to learn play patterns with this card of like how often are you just pitching it early. I guess it depends on the matchup and stuff like that. Like figuring out how much is the extra black card in your hand worth to get this down early if you're just playing it once and you're not just cheating it.
Yes. Yeah. Like I don't think it's always correct to immediately slam it, but I mean that's also just Canlander, right? Like it's so dependent on the match.
So how long have we been asking for another 1 mana discard spell when apparently all we need to do is ask for 0 mana discard?
When do they start? They start making sets like 2 years in advance, 3 years in advance,
something like that.
They might even have cards longer than that. They're just waiting for home for it, right?
Okay. GP Seattle Modern Horizons.
Let's move on. Next up, we have the Necrogoyf, which is a 5 mana X4 Lurgoyf for 3 a black and a black. Its power is equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player discards a card, and it has Madness for 1 black. Wheeler, what do you think?
I love this idiot. I think this card's only good if you're ever casting it off Madness. Like 5 mana is a lot of mana. Thankfully, Wild Mongrel's a card that exists. I genuinely believe that there is a deck that if your goals are to win a weekly event at your LGS or to build a cool deck that can kill people and doesn't get completely demolished by Dothy Voidwalker. Jund Madness has popped up in Victoria. At least I think Matt wanted to play it 3 times. The point is, if you Madness this card out, it could just run away with the game if you get it down early enough. Like the symmetrical discard is still not great because you would rather have control about when you do discard, but it doesn't die to Lightning Bolt. It doesn't get hit by Abrupt Decay or Eliminate. It starts to hit like a truck pretty quickly. And honestly, it doesn't even need to hit for much. Like if this is attacking for 3, good on you. But it's pretty gross in combat. And I'm excited to play this card in very, somewhat niche, admittedly, but in decks that, I'm excited to play it in decks that I'm excited to play, like decks that I have on my short list of decks I want to play when we can start playing.
Yeah, when we're all back again, it's like, oh, this will feel so good to play in paper again. Because there's decks that just feel better to play in paper.
Yeah, you just want to show off your lot with Troll deck. You want to do stuff like that with this card.
Beautiful. So. All right, next up, Nested Shambler is a 1 mana 1/1 zombie for a single black pip. When it dies, create X tapped 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens, where X is the Shambler's power. Jer.
Does this go in zombie tribal? Yes. Does this go in squirrel tribal? Yes, if you're playing black. Does this go in aristocrats? Yes.
No more questions.
No further questions.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
All right.
Does this go in a higher or lower tier because the tokens come into play tapped? Like, is that much of a game changer when comparing this to other 1/1s that when they die, they make a 1/1?
Not especially. I think it sort of depends. Like, it's worse than Doom Traveler. I think the fact that it's just like a vanilla token is not a big deal, but the fact that some percentage of the time, depending on your deck, you'll get to make multiple tokens, I think balances that out. Like in zombies, it's definitely better because you're likely getting multiple tokens more often. Whereas in aristocrats, you're not getting multiple tokens very often, occasionally. But yeah, I think it's Yeah, obviously slightly worse.
Well, now that we have Judith, honestly, you're probably a good chance of getting 2 bodies there.
Yeah, there is some cards in Aristocrats, just not many.
All right. Next up, we got Persist. This is a 2-mana sorcery for 1 and a black. Return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. What do you think, Jer?
It's really good. Play it in Reanimator and not Reanimator if you want to. It's good. Good value card as well.
It does only say your graveyard, which makes it a little bit...
Yeah, it's not quite as good as Animate Dead, but I mean, if you're going to put this card in your deck, you're going to have things you want to get back.
Yeah,
like you're either playing it in like a survival recurring nightmare deck or in a Reanimator deck.
All right. Next up, Profane Tutor. This is a sorcery with no converted mana cost. It can only be suspended for 1 and a black. It has Suspend 2, and when you cast it, it says search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, and then shuffle. What do you think, Wheeler?
I'm playing this magic card in combo decks that want to play tutors. It's okay to wait. This new generation of Storm Pilot, I tell you, they're always off to the races, trying to kill you as quickly as possible. They got no respect for the game. No respect for setting up with a duress. Maybe you cast a Baral. Maybe you make sure you can Orm's chant them. You know, just the finer things. And even when this finally goes off, the fact that you get to cast a demonic tutor for free, like you're putting in the money to get this, the mana to get this a little bit later, right?
I mean, money works. I don't think.
Yeah, money and mana. Mana is money, as I always say.
Yeah.
I've never said that in my life. Yeah, I like this. Out of all the like suspend cards that are callbacks to powerful, other cards, I think that this one is the best. But whether or not, I don't know if this is something I'd want necessarily. Well, now that I say it out loud, like maybe I would want this in like a blue-black X control deck too.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
Like doing it on 2 is awkward sometimes, but like worst case, you just go get Damnation, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it gives you enough time to see whether or not you're getting punished for what you've done, and if you want to react accordingly, because usually their punishment is going to be like you allowed them to develop, and then your tutor can be reactive, and if they haven't had the opportunity to punish you for doing that, then your tutor could be proactive or force a will so you can be proactive, and that feels pretty good. Also Shardless Agent, like if I'm playing, I don't know, like there's a lot of suspend cards, but like if I'm playing like a weirdo bug mid-range deck, like maybe I'm even playing Shardless Agent in that. I'll if I hit a Birds of Paradise, great, love it. If I hit Duress, sure. If I hit Demonic Tutor, I mean this version of Demonic Tutor, hey, that's okay too.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Sudden Edict. For 1 and a black, you get an instant. Target player sacrifices a creature, but it also has Split Second, which means as long as it's on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. What do you think, Jer?
I just don't think 2 mana edicts cut the mustard anymore. There's better options. Like it's better than Diabolic Edict. Is it better than Chainer's Edict? Probably not. Better than Innocent Blood? Nope. Better than the other edicts that do other things as well? Also probably no.
Yeah, I don't think we have to say much more about that. I bet you we get questions like, but it has Split Second, and the number of interactions that shuts down does not outweigh the fact that you always get their worst creature. Next up, Turok. Dread Cantor is a 2-mana, 2/1 legendary human cleric for 1 and a black. Has Kicker for black, has protection from white, and says whenever an opponent discards a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Turok. When Turok enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, target opponent discards 2 cards at random. Jer.
If you're in mono black or a very heavy black deck that wants to fight on the value axis, this is a very, very strong card.
Is Turok supposed to be a zombie? Is it like kind of upsetting that this is a human?
Like from a lore perspective? No, I'm pretty sure he's just a dude.
That was my understanding, but I'm no lore scientist, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's just, I'm pretty sure he's just mostly a dude. Like, if he's not a zombie, like, he might be a reanimated dude, but not like a reanimated zombie, like a reincarnated dude or whatever. It's been a hot minute,
yeah,
to be honest.
All right, where my Vorthos at? Let us know the story of Turok down in the comments.
He's not a zombie, though. Don't worry.
I could have assumed like zombie necromancer, like a lich.
Oh, no.
No? Okay. All right. Sorry, I totally derailed. So black heavy deck seems very good. Anything else, Jer?
No, that's pretty much it.
Feels bad to crack, is this?
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that.
I mean, if I'm playing both cracks in this card, I
Oh,
want to be doing
sure.
that.
Yeah. Oh, baby.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Unmarked Grave is a 2-mana sorcery for 1 and a black. Search your library for a non-legendary card, put it into your graveyard, and then shuffle. What do you think, Wheeler?
It's about goddamn time that we got a 2-mana Entomb effect. They can't, we started off with Buried Alive and Weatherlight, and that's 3 bodies and they're all creatures and it's 3 mana. And it's okay. And then they went way too hard with Entomb. 1 mana, 1 card, instant. Like, what are you doing? You're going to spoil yourself you're going to spoil your dinner. And because of Entomb, we didn't get any, cheaper Entomb effects, right? Except for, Gamble if you're me.
Yeah. Or, staple to 7 mana creatures, right?
Exactly, yeah. And finally, they did it. And tagged with non-legendary, which I love. I love this formatting. If non-legendary lets them continuously print big idiot legends that people want to reanimate in older formats or cast in Commander or whatever, and also, lets them make cards like this, keep it up. Please. You're doing a great job. Strip isn't legendary. Strip Mine isn't legendary. Fast Bond isn't legendary.
Oh.
Life from the
Glacial
Loam.
Chasm, Life from the Loam, Academy Rector, Protean Hulk. Academy Rector should be legendary. Creature type Sandra Bullock, but yeah, Black Lotus isn't a legendary card, right?
So even though this is 2 mana and sorcery, it's still obscenely good in our format?
Well, it's very good. It's not Entomb is obscene, right? Power, even if that card isn't actually doing the most broken thing possible, you just look at this and you're like, I can't believe this card exists. I still just look at it. It's like, this is how they started things off. That they went way too hard, way too quickly. They started drinking at 10 a.m. and it hit 2 p.m.
6 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And people are like, hey, we're getting ready. Are you okay? And Entomb is just throwing up in the corner and be like,
what a great night out.
oh God. Yeah, I guess give me five minutes. I just got a Rorix in the graveyard and I just need a sec. And it's like, okay. So yeah, I'll play this in decks that play Entomb, and that's it. Yeah, this card's great.
Cool. All right, and the final card that we are going to talk about today is Young Necromancer. It's a 5-mana 2/3 human warlock for 4 and a black. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile 2 cards from your graveyard. When you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Take us home, Wheeler.
Oh, Serge, let me tell you that I like this card. I don't know why I was building up so much. I just like this card a lot for a couple of reasons. It lets you loop in Pattern Rector decks, which is cool and good. And I know people are like, but Ben, you have to exile 2 cards. We've done the math. It's okay. That doesn't matter as much as you'd think.
Yeah, you probably don't need to do this too many times before your loop is just kind of doesn't need it anymore, right?
The struggle, you would use this in your Pattern Rector loop if one of your other pieces was dealt with. And because, we're seeing more and more ways of exiling cards from the graveyard or just exiling cards in general, you might lose one of your key pieces. And having it attached to, having an additional version of that is easy to cast as well. It's only a single black and is something that you can play out fairly and not have it feel bad. You don't play out your Karmic Guide and then you're not paying Echo and you've exposed it to the elements. That's pretty cool and good. Yeah, you would only use this in your loop if you've already had one piece kind of dealt with, or if you need to loop with Restoration Angel to get things going, because Restoration Angel can only flicker non-angels, and Karmic Guide is an angel. So you can flicker this card with Restoration Angel, which is kind of huge when you're getting Protean Hulk piles. And yeah, the exiling the 2 cards, it will add up, but you only really need it in the you only have to worry about it very early on when you're comboing, right? And even starting at 0-ish cards in your graveyard, you have a bunch of extra slots where you have redundant sack outlets that you can put in your graveyard. You have redundant 1-drops and whatnot, so that it makes it smooth as butter. Also, this card's just very cute.
Yeah, the art is great. Yeah. I'm learning.
It's a feel-good card, and then it's also just bringing back Protean Hulk or Siege Rhino, and I just like that.
The art ever so slightly hints towards maybe a young Liliana with the headpiece there.
Yeah, it's the young Pyromancer is a Chandra fan, And this is Liliana's like
Heck yeah.
number one fan. Yeah, it's nice.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for part 1 of our set review, where again we covered Esper. Please stay tuned and look forward to parts 2 and 3. There's enough cards, we're splitting into 3 episodes where we cover the rest of this set. Reminder, if there are any cards that you think we missed and you want us to talk about, let us know in the comments down below. Also, another reminder that this is brought to you by you with the support of the Patreon over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Thank you very, very much for listening. I've been Serge, joined by Jaron Wheeler, and we will see you next time. Bye.